Galleria's Rio Mora, Naples, 1974, was where the then 28-year-old Serbian performance artist Marina Abramović held one of her most controversial art pieces, Rhythm Zero. On the stage, Abramović stood still next to a table where she placed 72 random objects such as a rose, feather, perfume, honey, bread, scissors, scalpel, nails, metal bar, and a gun with a bullet. The rules were simple. For the next 6 hours, the spectators and visitors could do whatever they wished to her and would suffer no consequences. The sign she placed on the table read, "Instructions. There were 72 objects on the table that one can use on me as desired. Performance, I am the object. During this period, I take full responsibility. Duration, 6 hours, 8 p.m. to 2 a.m. The aim of this piece was for Abramović to see how far people would go if they were placed in a situation where there is no consequences. The visitors were reluctant at first, but then, one by one, they, mostly men, stood forward. They started off tame, they stood her up, made her turn around, one of them kissed her, but as time went on, the men became more and more violent and aggressive. By the third hour, someone cut all of her clothes off. By the fourth, they slashed her skin, cut her face and throat so they could suck on her blood. But Abramović, determined to finish her piece, stood there motionless with tears in her eyes. The men dragged her body around like a piece of meat, opened up her legs, put a knife in between them. At its peak, one of the men loaded the gun with the bullet and handed it to her, pointing it to herself to see if she would actually shoot herself. By that point, even the museum had to step in. But then, as the performance finally ended, something interesting happened. As the clock struck 2 a.m., Abramović ended her performance by looking at the men straight in the eye. All these men who for the past 6 hours violated her, assaulted her, attempted to kill her, or watched it happen without stepping in, were finally confronted by her. As Abramović began walking towards them, the guilt of what they had done kicked in. When they were forced to view her as a human being, they ran away. They couldn't even look at her after what they had done, so they just turned around and left.
I started moving. I started being myself because I was there like a puppet just for them. And that moment, everybody ran away. People could not actually confront with me as a person. I remember going back to hotel, look in the mirror, and I found a big piece of white hair.
But on a completely unrelated note, let's talk about Estranged Parents.
Time magazine recently had a story that more adult children than ever before are estranged from their parents.
One of the things that I've discovered through my work is, it really feels like estrangement is a silent epidemic.
So what's up? What's up with daughters being estranged from their mothers, adult daughters?
This no contact trend is not about healing. It's about punishing the parents.
The biggest cop-out in the world that I hear from the estranged adult child community on this platform is that they don't owe their parents anything. Yes, I'm going to say it. Yes, you do. You absolutely do. You owe your parents for bringing you into this world and keeping you alive.
Today is my daughter's birthday. She is 29 and she hasn't spoken with us for 2.5 years now. Just know that I still love you, no matter what you say or don't say about me. You can't change that. I will fucking love you forever, like it or not. Because I'm a mom. Moms are like that.
Hi everyone! So it's been a while since I posted a video. A lot has been going on in my personal life, but in today's video I want to talk about the concept of estranged parents. The topic of estranged parents is something that has been steadily gaining interest over the past few years. According to the American Psychological Association, in 2024, it was reported that 27% of Americans are actively estranged from at least one family member. When someone becomes estranged, it refers to a loss of affection, love, and connection towards an individual or a group of people. It's the opposite of intimacy. What was once may have been a close, tight-knit relationship has now downgraded to being acquaintances or even strangers. So when estrangement happens between family members, between a parent and a child, it can cause people to have mixed reactions, because it goes against pretty much everything we are taught about families. Ever since we were a child, we were told that family is the most important thing. Family comes first. Our parents, our mother and father, are supposed to protect, love, and care for us, and in return, it is our duty to care for them as they age. So when someone willingly decides to create a wedge between them and their parents, it can confuse a lot of people. It is a heavy topic that can carry a lot of stigma that is still taboo to talk about, especially in certain cultures and religions. But over the past couple of years, as celebrities and other high-profile people in society have come forward with their stories of going estranged from their families, whether it be Britney Spears opening up about being abused and exploited by her dad, Prince Harry being public about leaving the royal family, or Jeanette McCurdy writing a book about the abuse she suffered under the hands of her late narcissistic mother, the topic of estranged family has somewhat destigmatized and become less taboo. Today, many support the idea that some parents are less than ideal and it is preferable to establish boundaries or to even burn the bridge. Reddit groups such as Estranged Adult Child currently has over 50,000 members, and Raised by Narcissist has garnered over 1 million. In the UK, there is the organisation Stand Alone that provides support to children of estranged parents through support groups, guidance, and financial assistance. These groups have their own terms and abbreviations that they use to describe their situation. LC meaning low contact, VLC standing for very low contact, and finally NC, which stands for no contact or estranged. But on the flip side, there has also been a lot of pushback, not just from society, general public, or the media, but from the estranged parents themselves. In late August of 2023, Diane Cohen from the YouTube channel Estranged Parents uploaded her very first video, "My daughter stopped talking to me, so I let her go." The video garnered over 1 million views with mixed responses. On TikTok, there is Laura Wellington, who goes by the name Doormat Mom, with over 80,000 followers, who feels victimized by the estrangement of her daughter, claiming that she has been walked over, even writing a book called Doormat Mom No More.
I decided not to hang up one of my adult child stockings this year. Yeah, I still did them. And I decided not to hang hers up, not because I'm warning the adult child whose behavior resulted in our estrangement. I'm warning the adult child who I thought she was. And it's just too hard.
Compared to the children of estranged parents, there seems to be far more resources for the parents who have been estranged. There are forums, communities, groups for estranged parents. It really is a never-ending rabbit hole that you could go down on, and that's exactly what I've been doing over the past couple of years now. So, in today's video, I want to share what I found as I browsed the communities and spaces for estranged parents on the internet. What is it? What they're about? Are their grievances truly legitimate? Is this yet another instance of the younger generation being a snowflake? Is there ever a way to mend and reconcile between an adult child and their estranged parent? Or is this something sinister that will likely never change? One of the things that I noticed as I browsed through the site of the internet for estranged parents is that almost all of these estranged parents display strong narcissistic traits. Now, Obviously, I'm not saying that all estranged parents are narcissists. I am aware that narcissist is a term that gets thrown around a lot in the realm of the internet. However, as you start consuming this content, it's not long till you spot some pretty glaring red flags. The first red flag is the guilt tripping. Guilt tripping is something that happens a lot in these spaces where the estranged parents would go on and on about how they did their best, how they gave their children everything, how they always put their children's needs over their own. But if that really were the case, why are they estranged? In Diane's video, at one point after her father passed away, she sits down and has a breaking point. Their video is riddled with red flags, but this is the point that really did it for me.
When you're a kid, you look at your parents like this big, all-knowing people, and then when you get to be an adult, you realize, oh my God, they're flawed. And there's a breakaway period where you break away and you're like, get away from me. And then usually there's a period where they come back, and hopefully they will at some point, but just in case they don't, they'll have some videos to watch about who is mom and what did she worry about and what did she think about, and I don't know, maybe nobody cares.
Maybe nobody cares, she says as she plays sad, dramatic music in the background. I don't know if she is doing this deliberately, but it comes off as if she is fishing for compliments, going on the internet, airing out all of her daughter's personal business to get the validation and reassurance from strangers. Also, if she really does intend her daughter to see this video, what kind of message is she trying to send her? It's like she is trying to make her daughter feel bad, feel guilty for cutting ties with her, which is likely why she went no contact in the first place. One of the most sinister things about narcissism is the constant hot and cold. Narcissists are not like your typical abusers that is always overtly rude, violent, and abusive. Narcissists are more like Jekyll and Hyde, where to the world and out in public they may present a favorable image of themselves, of being this selfless parent, this martyr, this victim who has done everything right but has still been punished. But behind closed doors, they are violent and abusive, emotionally, verbally, and sometimes even physically. As such, there is constant gaslighting, denial, and manipulation. Victims of narcissist abuse always have to stay on guard, be hyper-vigilant, walk on eggshells, because you don't know what to expect. They are often not believed, especially if they are children, but as narcissists age, they fail to keep up this facade. Constant red flags keep popping up, and their narratives present with plenty of inconsistencies. A therapist by the name of Steffi Wagner, who goes by the handle Mother Wound Project on Instagram, made this post in April of last year where she investigated some estranged parents forums, and quite frankly, some of these parents are just nasty to their children. These parents claim that they did their best, they did everything they could, yet they are the one who is still being punished, then at the very same breath would call their children awful, degrading names in a forum of thousands of people. This estranged parent, for example, started off by saying how they gave their estranged daughter everything, then proceeded to call her a devil child and wonder if there had been a mix-up of babies at the hospital where she was born because she refused to believe such an ungrateful child could be theirs. Laura Wellington, who goes by the name Doormat Mom on TikTok, as the name suggests, claims that she has been walked all over by her ungrateful, estranged daughter as if she were a doormat, yet she is the one who wrote an entire book belittling and bullying her daughter that she published on the same week as her wedding. She also runs her own community Facebook group for parents like her who have been estranged from their child, which she promotes like this.
Were you a really good parent who did the best they could, and yet your child has decided to be an ungrateful little bastard as an adult? If that's you, join me here. Follow me on this account and actually join my Facebook group, Doormat Mom No More. There are a lot of really good parents out there who did everything that they could, and yet their kids are ungrateful little bastards. We need to connect here. We need to support each other, and we need to talk about it.
Like, what even is this? This kind of behavior where they're bullying, shaming, humiliating their adult children is not consistent with what they claim to be. That they were good parents, the best parents who did everything they could, who tried their best. Not to mention, this is how they're behaving on a public platform where their content could be seen by thousands, if not millions of people. If this is how they behave and speak about their own child in public, can you even imagine how much worse they would be in private? And lastly, the most prominent theme present in these spaces is denial. Most of these parents have no idea why their adult children no longer speak to them. Apparently it just happened out of nowhere. After all, they're such good parents, the best parents who did everything they could, they did their best, yet their children just abandoned them. Many blame outside forces like the environment, internet, politics, influence from a partner or a friend group. When pressed into talking about what happened between them and their children, they will beat around the bush, shift goalposts, keep it fake like, oh well, things went always the best, but I still did everything that I could. They avoid giving a direct answer on what they may have done to cause this. Ironically, the reasons for why their children are missing is missing. The blog Isn't Die writes about going down the rabbit hole of estranged parents forums. One popular post published over 10 years ago called The Missing Reasons explores this phenomena where these estranged parents would lament about how they have no clue what happened between them and their estranged child, what they have done to cause this. Apparently it just happened out of nowhere. But when pushed into talking about it, they avoid it. They keep it vague, they never actually state what exactly happened. For example, one estranged parent writes, "My sons consistently refuse to reply to my emails and let my calls go to voicemail or barely speak if they do answer. They accuse me of being a terrible person but won't elaborate about what exactly I've done. Well, sometimes they do, but it doesn't make sense, at least to me." So, what did their son say? Why not actually share what is being said? That way, maybe someone else on the forum could help out if it doesn't make sense to you. Another parent shares, "Sometimes when I've tried, all I've had back is pages and pages of abuse. It kills me and my husband when we have to read what a despicable person I am, how I am evil and twisted and negative and 1,000 other things too." The reply last night was unbelievable. The things he said were cruel, vindictive, and completely untrue. He remembers things in a totally distorted way, and he believes 100% that this stuff is true, no matter how much we try to tell him he has it wrong. Again, what exactly was said in those pages and pages of abuse? If it really was that bad, why not actually show it? And this is a common theme that keeps popping up in these spaces for estranged parents. They claim that they have done nothing wrong, they are the most perfect parents there is who did their best, and it is their children who are ungrateful bastards. But then when asked for an explanation or even just an example of what their kids actually did, they push back and get defensive. They claim that they have no idea why their children is no longer speaking to them, but then when the child actually explains themselves, they get ignored or silenced. Most of the time, these parents spend a considerable amount of time explaining how much they were hurt by what was said or done by their children instead of actually showing it. And if someone responds with anything other than unwavering support, if someone questions them even in the slightest way, they get offended. Compare this to the support groups for adult children who have cut ties with their parents. They usually have mountains of evidence as to why they did so. They recreate scenes, show screenshots, full text conversations exchanged between them and their estranged parent, sometimes even recordings of their behavior. If their stories present inconsistencies, they are questioned and held accountable by other group members. As Isn't Die writes, "The difference isn't a matter of style, it's a split between two ways of perceiving the world. In one worldview, emotion is king. Details exist to support emotion. Emotion creates reality. In the second worldview, reality creates emotions. Members want the full picture so they can decide whether the poster's emotions are justified. They care about position, context, and history." And this is not just in the forums. In Diane's video from Estranged Parents, Diane is baffled as to why her daughter has cut ties with them. She claims she has no idea. I mean, her video literally starts off like this.
I really thought I could get through this without crying. 27% of American adults have cut contact with a family member, lasting an average 4.5 years. I never dreamed I'd be part of that statistic.
Throughout the video, Diane reveals her daughter's first name, her birthday, shares photos and videos of her from when she was little, likely without her consent. She runs the same old monologue on how she thought she did her best, how she never imagined this would happen to her.
I never in a million years imagined that I would have a daughter who would just cut me out of her life. We did the best we could. I really thought we did our best.
But here's the thing, her daughter did actually explain as to why she cut them off. In fact, she wrote them an entire letter, and just look at how they responded to this.
Have you seen this?
Dear parents, I need to speak my truth. All my life, I've been gasping about what I need to say. I need you to know how you're hurting my mental health. It's bad. I have my life ruined because of you.
Just to be clear, I did not edit this. This is how they responded. This is how they showed the letter. So they never actually showed it, only snippets of it with overlapping edits. And the things that their daughter talked about, like being gaslit and guilt-tripped all her life, hurting her mental health, having her life ruined, it sounds pretty serious. Yet they couldn't even properly respond to it. They just ridiculed and made a mockery out of it. But it wasn't just that. Turns out their daughter also has a platform on TikTok where she made a video explaining why she went no contact with her parents that Diane and her partner sat down to watch, but even that went over their heads.
You know, I think the thing that I guess irks me, that whole love with strings attached thing, I don't get that. I don't know where that comes from.
Diane also revealed at the end of the video that their daughter is 29 years old and has been in no contact for 2.5 years. So this isn't some teenager going through a rebellious phase. No, this is a full-grown adult who has likely thought through their decision.
Today is my daughter's birthday. She is 29 and she hasn't spoken with us for 2.5 years now.
But the absolute worst example of this has to come from Laura, the doormat mom, whose erratic behavior at some point caused her estranged daughter to step in and make a response video on TikTok. Now, Laura's daughter, unlike her, is not an influencer. She is just a regular person who prefers to live a private life. She has her own family and kids to look after. Yet she felt the need to step in because Laura quite literally put her and her family's lives in danger.
All right, doormat mom. This is your daughter speaking, wondering what your next move is.
Laura's daughter went on to say how Laura and her husband stalked down her family, traveled thousands of miles to the state that they lived in, and showed up unannounced to their home. They were banging on the door, demanded to see the children. They were yelling their children's names, bribing them with money. The police were called, and they are currently in the process of getting a restraining order. The next day they came back, except this time they just kept driving past their home. Their security cameras caught them driving past 4 times. When they weren't allowed to come through their front door, they tried trespassing through their backyard and then their neighbor's backyard. The police were called again, and the police literally agreed that, yeah, this is harassment, this is stalking, and they would be looking into it. This whole incident was obviously extremely traumatic for Laura's daughter and their family, who thought they have moved past this as they had already gone no contact, but as it turns out, they really haven't.
I never wanted it to come to this. I just wanted to be left alone. I just want to live my life in peace. These last 48 hours have been so nerve-wracking and traumatic. My children and I can't go to the grocery store without looking over our shoulders now, wondering if they're there, right? My youngest has completely admitted that, yeah, if they showed up and made promises of buying him an Xbox, that he would have been lured into their car. Like, he's admitting that he would have been lured by this kidnapping ruse. Like, this child that I had been trusting to go to school on his own, to go down a grocery aisle on his own, he's glued to me like super glue at this point.
So when these so-called good parents go on and on about how they did their best and how they have absolutely no idea what they did wrong, that is an utter lie. They know exactly what they have done. They know where they went wrong, that's why they try to hide it. It is not that they don't know the answer, it's that they don't like the answer. That's why it usually doesn't matter how eloquent you are, how well you explain yourself, how much evidence you present, it's all going to go over their heads. So why do they do this? Why do they still demand an answer when they know it's not going to be what they want to hear? And when they're presented with evidence, they ignore it even when it's right in front of their face. The reason being is because narcissists don't see their children as people. They see them as objects that can be molded and shaped into an extension of themselves. When they are a child that is powerless, that is completely under their control, whose life depends on them, they can treat them however they wish. But as the child grows into an adult, develops their own personality, beliefs and values, they come to learn that how they were treated was wrong. And so they demand accountability and responsibility from their parents. The parent is now forced to see their child not as an object that is just a mere extension of them, but as a human being. They see the sides of themselves that are not the righteous, perfect, grandiose image that they try to present to the world, but of the cunning, cruel, conniving character underneath being reflected through their child. They are forced to deal with uncomfortable feelings of shame, regret, and guilt. Instead of owning up to it, many choose to just run away through denying, gaslighting, and manipulating. That's why even after demanding to know why they were cut off, when they do receive an answer, they ignore it. Because regardless of how true and factual it may be, it is not what they wanted to hear. It does not align with the image that they have of themselves in their head. When they say they want an answer, what they really mean is an answer that they like, that matches with their version of themselves in their heads, that tells them how great they are and how they are the best parent ever and how their children have made a huge mistake by cutting ties with them. Another reason why estranged parents may feel confused when their child goes no contact with them is because it can be really sudden. Many parents believe that their children just stop speaking to them out of nowhere, but that rarely is the case for the children. The relationship that we have with our parents is the first and the most important relationship that we have in our lives. Children are hardwired by society, culture, and biology to depend on their parents, to look for them for guidance, support, and survival. So cutting ties with one or both parents is not an easy decision for most people. There is likely a lot of thought that went into it. For most people, it is the last resort, the last straw after trying everything else. Even if the child may seem happy and acted like everything was fine in the moment, that could have been a coping mechanism, since as we have seen, these people don't react very well to criticism. And so maybe only after they have burned the bridge, they feel safe to speak their mind and express themselves. And these issues don't just go away after you've gone no contact. It leaves behind lifelong consequences that you have to deal with. Usually after the narcissist parent realizes that they have been cut off, their erratic behavior dials up to an 11. They engage in bullying, harassment, stalking. Sometimes they may even recruit others to engage in this behavior, a practice known as flying monkeys. Once a narcissist can no longer control you, they try to control how others see you. They take it up with other family members, friends, or even the internet. And the worst part is that most people don't see anything wrong with it. They dismiss it, invalidate it, make excuses. Most don't even believe it. Being estranged from your family comes with ostracism. Even after you've cut them off, their behavior may still be enabled by friends, family members, other relatives, and of course, the biggest enabler of them all, which is society itself. Family is the structural unit to society. For most people, it's the thing that's the most important to them, that takes the top priority, and it's not just in real life. Familial relationships play a major theme in most media, movies, TV shows, advertisements. Being raised in a good, healthy environment with loving, caring parents is something that is just assumed instead of what it really is, which is a privilege. And so having a dysfunctional family in a society that holds families to such a high standard can be incredibly isolating and alienating. People who were lucky enough to have healthy parents simply don't get it. They don't understand, most of them don't even believe it. They may say tone-deaf things like, how could a parent ever do this to their child? Not realizing that these parents do this because it is their child. A lot of these people, these narcissists, had children because it is the only way they could control someone, have power over someone, do whatever they like and get away with that for the most part. I mean, the only reason why these spaces are even allowed to exist where people get together to bully, harass and belittle someone, it's because it's parents doing it to their own children. If this was done by anyone, if it was anyone else, if it was your boss, co-worker, friend, girlfriend, boyfriend, partner behaving this way, people wouldn't be okay with it. They'll tell you to drop them, leave them, they may even chastise you for staying with them. But if it's your family, that all goes out the window. People instead backpedal like, oh, but they're still your family. You only get one mother or father. While it is shifting, society for the most part still enables abusive parents. They hold them to a different standard, like they're infallible beings who could do no wrong. Admitting that some parents are less than ideal goes against their fair and just view of the world where parents are always supposed to love and support their children. It makes them uncomfortable, so many just simply choose to look away. But perhaps what is even more annoying than the people who enable this behavior are the people who try to be neutral, who try to take the both sides approach to this situation.
It's easy to forget that this is your mom's first time being human too. It's easy to forget that your mom is somebody else's daughter, and she probably didn't get what she needed.
This article from The New Yorker, written by Anna Russell, is one example of this. Russell's article begins by telling the stories of some adults who went no contact with their parents. One of them was raised in an evangelical Christian household where they were told anyone who disagreed with them would go to hell. One is a survivor of child sexual abuse by their father. One was disowned by their parents after coming out as queer, all of which were incredibly heartbreaking to read. But then Russell tries to play neutral and see the parents' point of view. Joshua Coleman is a common figure who pops up a lot in these spaces. He himself is an estranged father and calls himself a reconciliation coach. He went on to say in this article, the bar for qualifying as a trauma today is much lower. Some critics think the movement has gone too far. You know, this would have been a valid point to make until you find out the kinds of abuse some of these adult children endured that led them to cutting off their parents. And they try to take it back like few would argue that one should continue a relationship with a parent when it involves physical or sexual abuse, and yet many estrangements happen for other reasons, including emotional abuse or toxic behavior, more difficult terms to define, or differences in worldview. This is giving, oh, kids these days are so sensitive, they can't even handle someone having a different opinion to them. And yeah, obviously very few people would defend physical or sexual abuse, and that's exactly why most of these parents would deny it. They will gaslight, manipulate, pretend that they don't remember, somehow find a way to blame it on their children. This sort of both sides argument where you try to take a neutral approach only works when both parties are on the same level. That is not the case when it comes to a parent-child dynamic. Even after the children have grown up, have become an adult, the parent will always have the upper hand. And in the case where, say, the child really was in the wrong, maybe they were a difficult child who misbehaved and constantly got into trouble, they were still a child. They were a child and you were the adult in this situation. But as we've seen, that is not the case for most of these estranged parents, which further proves why this sort of middle-of-the-road approach is futile, especially when one party was vulnerable, powerless, and abused, and the other doesn't even want to admit where they went wrong. So if you have made it this far into the video and you feel like your parents behave similar to the kind of parents I talked about, you may be wondering, what can be done? Well, most of you are not going to like it, but the answer is nothing. The first step to fixing a problem is to acknowledge that there is a problem in the first place. When denial runs this deep, when they wouldn't even admit that they're in the wrong, even when the evidence is right in front of them, there is nothing that can be done. A lot of these parents are emotionally immature. They expect you to hold their hand, sit them down, and politely and eloquently explain to them why it's wrong to call names, violate boundaries, or guilt trip someone. It's like tending a child with no hopes that they'll ever grow out of it. Some people suggest therapy with these kinds of narcissist parents, and while it has to be judged on a case-by-case basis, usually therapy doesn't help narcissists. Most of them outright refuse therapy because they don't want to admit something is wrong with them, or if they do go to therapy, oftentimes they'll use what they've learned in therapy to further manipulate people. Narcissists rarely ever change, so the only way out is to establish boundaries or go full no contact. And I'm not here to tell you what to do with your parents. At the end of the day, it is a decision that you need to make. But if you do choose to keep them in your life and let them just walk all over you, you will burn out and snap eventually. At some point, you have to ask yourself, is it really worth it? Yes, they are your parents, but is it really worth sacrificing your mental, emotional, and sometimes even physical well-being for them? They may have sacrificed a lot for you, but most of those things are what parents are supposed to do when they have children. Like putting a roof over your head, food on the table, clothes on your back, having your basic needs met. An orphanage does that, a prison could do that. And it's not about material things. There are plenty of people who grew up in poverty that still have a good relationship with their parents, because it is the genuine love and care that is felt regardless of what you have. They may brag about how much of a good parent they are, how they did their best, but they don't get to decide that. Especially if their best still left you traumatized and scarred for life, then we need to reevaluate what best really means. So that's the video for today. To finish up today's video, I want to talk a little bit about myself. So one of the reasons why I haven't been very active on here is because, as you may have probably guessed, I had to cut contact with my parents. I have been estranged from my dad for over 10 years now, and I also had to cut ties with my mom about 6 months ago as of filming this. I don't want to get into what happened, but it has been a mixture of emotions. Like, making this video has been both triggering and comforting for me at the same time. While I have no regrets, in fact, the only regret I do have is not doing it sooner, given how calm and peaceful my life is now. But I'm not going to sit here and tell you that everything is perfect. There is still a lot of guilt, pain, and grief that I have to work through. It is weird having to grieve a person that is still alive, and grieving makes time feel weird too. Like, it has been 6 months, but it both feels longer and shorter than that. Like, some days I wake up feeling like it has been years, other times it feels like it was just yesterday. So if you need a first-hand testimonial, there you have it. Cutting off your parents, regardless of how old you are, is never easy. Nobody does something like this on a whim. For me, it was one of the hardest things I ever had to do, and the things that I endured that led to this was an absolute nightmare that I would not wish upon anyone. Other than that, I'll leave it here. Thanks so much for watching, especially if you made it till the end. Leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already. I don't know if I'll upload any more videos this year, but I do have a Patreon where I've been making more personal videos of what I've been through, so do check it out if you're interested, linked in the description. Otherwise, thanks again, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye.